Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is pre-match build-up show time. Liverpool are finally back in action after what feels like absolutely ages since the last time the boys in red kicked a ball. Already, while I'm just recording this video, it's over a week since our last game and it's still three days to go until that game against Leicester. I mean, it's going to be interesting how this goes down, because when you compare what Liverpool have had over the last few days to what Manchester City have had, they've had a lot of games. We have had this massive expanse, and if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't know which team is going to benefit more from the fixtures that they've had, because while you look at Manchester City and say, you know, playing weekend midweek over and over and over again can start to wear you down, the fact of the matter is they haven't really played, you know, difficult opposition at any point during that time. Every single game they've played has been over by around about the hour mark, and they have got a big enough squad to rotate their way through those games, even though in the Cups against both Burton and Burnley it was they played in the FA Cup, they did play reasonably strong teams. So I don't think it's going to affect them too badly. I think it'll actually benefit them to stay in that rhythm, and that's the one thing that I'm kind of a little bit worried about in this game. Is it's hard to predict what kind of Liverpool is going to turn out, because we've seen in the past, because we always tend to have pretty bad luck, or at least we just play badly in the FA Cup under Jurgen Klopp. We've gone away on these warm weather training camps, and I think at first it didn't seem to kind of work. I think it was something the squad weren't really used to doing, and as a result it kind of took them a while to get back into a rhythm when they came back. I think last season when we did it one or maybe two times, it did seem to work a little bit better, and the team seemed to respond well to the kind of the training and the exercises that they've been put through while they'd been away. I think in this case it's probably a good thing, because it's nice to get away during the absolutely horrible winter weather, and also with the fact that we've had quite a few players picking up small knocks here and there, you know, not necessarily massive injuries, but a lot of times we've just gone into games and it's been like, this fella's out because he's hurt his ankle a little bit, but he'll be back next week and stuff like that. And I think just having that little bit of time for them to allow their bodies to recover after what was a very, very grueling December period that Jurgen Klopp just pushed them through and said, honestly, just keep on going and you'll get your rest at some point in January. I think it's hopefully going to work in our favour in that sense, but it's going to be interesting to see how exactly Liverpool turn out. I think what we really need from this game is just a bit of a stable win, you know, something, a 2-0, maybe even a 3-0, get us back in the swing of things, establish that we're back and, you know, nothing's changed since we left, and also establish a little bit of order after the absolutely mad game against Palace. You know, it'd be nice to just basically say that was a one-off. That's not going to happen again against any side this season. There's no way we're going to concede 3 goals, especially at home, especially against a team outside of the top 6 again between now and the end of the Premier League campaign. I think we just need to go out and show that that game, as entertaining as it was, is not going to happen again. And also, the other sort of spice that's been added into the mix is the fact that this time City are playing first, which hasn't been the case, I think, for a while really. For most of the last few games we've either been playing them, we've played first, or we've played at the same time as them. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this one pans out, because obviously if City do win, and I think they're playing Newcastle away, so, you know, barring a miracle from Rafa Benitez, they probably will get the 3 points. A 1-point gap does feel a lot less stable than the kind of thing we've become used to over the last month or so. So it's going to be a fascinating game. I think it's one that I still reckon Liverpool won't really struggle with too much, and I'll come on to what I think about how Leicester are going to play later. But I think the most important thing is to just get ourselves back into the swing of things, get a few goals, establish that Mo Salah is still the best player in the Premier League, get a nice clean sheet as well to show that the Palace game was just utterly mad and will never happen again, and we can all go home very, very happy indeed. So team news going into the game, there's quite a lot of injury news, because a few players did end up dropping out during that January period, and that's what I mean about, you know, knocks just building up and kind of the effect of those December games finally coming into play on the players' fitness levels. So Joe Gomez is apparently not going to be available for this game. It was reported that he might actually be close for this one. I think certainly when he first got his injury, it was only expected to be about 6 weeks or something like that. So really he should have been back by now, but he has suffered a little bit of a setback along the way. And according to Jurgen Klopp, he's still about a couple of weeks from returning. So hopefully we see him back before the Bayern game, but it's possible that that might actually end up being his first first game back. So until then, we might have to press on without him because he hasn't even returned to full first team training yet. Elsewhere in the defence, there is some positive news. Dejan Lovren is back in training after missing the last couple of games. Virgil van Dijk did miss out a couple of recent training sessions, but that was only through illness, so we're expecting him to be fine. Elsewhere, you've also got Gini Wijnaldum and Trent Alexander-Arnold are essentially being just tested day by day at the moment. Obviously, both of them missed out the game against Crystal Palace because of knocks they picked up and essentially just played through the pain against Brighton. By the sounds of it, Gini might be just a little bit closer than Trent, but from what Jurgen Klopp's been saying, he's basically said, you know, they're doing well, they're training and everything, but we've just got to keep testing them day by day. We don't want to sort of, you know, make any sweeping statements like, yeah, he'll definitely play against Leicester, or no, he absolutely won't. So, you know, both of them possible, but we won't know for sure until maybe either Klopp's press conference, which will probably take place on Tuesday afternoon, or maybe even when the starting 11 actually gets announced on Wednesday evening. So as for how I think Liverpool are actually going to line up, I think it's going to be Alisson Becker in goal. Why wouldn't it be? The centre-back pairing, I think it's going to be Dejan Lovren and Virgil van Dijk. Obviously, Van Dijk is a shoo-in. Dejan Lovren, I think, comes in for Joel Matip because Matip's just been a little bit poor in the performances that he's given recently. He's very inconsistent, I think, is the problem. You know, we know he's capable of fantastic things. We saw that right at the start of his Liverpool career, and in flashes he hasn't been too bad this season, especially in these kind of games where he isn't put under too much pressure. But I think he was exposed as a bit of a weakness in that game against Crystal Palace. Obviously, it didn't help that he was playing on the right hand side along with James Milner as well, and that was the side that Wilfried Zaha was on. You're always going to have a difficult time in that kind of situation, but he just looked a little bit like he wasn't that composed, like he was flying into challenges at the wrong time. It wasn't his best game in Liverpool shirt. So I think you bring Dejan Lovren, and I'd say behind Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk, he's probably our next best centre-back in the team. So they're the centre-back pairing. I think Trent probably does come in as the right-back simply because, you know, Milner had a bit of a difficult game against Palace, and obviously, you know, Milner's not even available for this game, so why am I even considering him? He obviously got that red card against Leicester, so there's no way he plays. We haven't really got any other options, to be honest, apart from maybe Kiana Huerva, who is fit. He did pick up a bit of an injury, but he is still going to be available for this game. He returned to training along with Dejan Lovren, so, you know, maybe he starts. Maybe it's an appearance for Camacho. You know, he put in a perfectly reasonable cameo of about 2 minutes when he came on against Crystal Palace. But I think unless Trent is, you know, nowhere near 100%, we probably just risk him a little bit for this game. And look, if it's not going well for him, if he's struggling to get through it, if he's feeling too much pain, we can always bring on a Camacho or maybe even do something mad like a Matip at right back or something like that. But I think Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back is probably going to happen. The left back, definitely going to be Andrew Robertson. The midfield too, I think we play 4-2-3-1 as we always do in these type of games. I think would be Henderson and Fabinho, partially because, you know, Wijnaldum not entirely fit, so it doesn't necessarily make sense to play him in a role that is obviously very, very demanding. I think that's where you need the most energy, is to play in midfield for Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, and also both of them played pretty good games against Crystal Palace. Jordan Henderson was most people's man of the match for that game and controlled it for vast periods and really showed what he is still capable of doing in a Liverpool shirt. And Fabinho was pretty sound as well. So I think neither of them really deserve to lose their place. And, you know, with a game against West Ham only 5 days or so later, why not save Gini Wijnaldum for that? And then ahead of them, I think we're going full strength in the attack as always. I think you go with Firmino down the middle, Mane out on the left, Shaqiri on the right, and then Mohamed Salah as the centrepiece of the attack. I think, again, there's maybe shouts for Keita. Obviously played against Crystal Palace, but didn't really have the best game. I think we are going to have to put a little bit more effort into working out what role he can play in this team, because, you know, it's nice to say that he's, you know, working his way into the side and it'll come eventually, but it's going to have to come at some point. And with the amount of fixtures we've got at the moment against what you consider to be lesser teams, we should be giving him a run and maybe even experimenting with him in different positions, whether that's in the midfield too, the double pivot, whether that's maybe in the number 10 where Firmino's playing at the moment. This is a good opportunity now to just try a few different things with Naby Keita and see what happens. Maybe even go with the 4-3-3 and just tell him to play really advanced. You know, I think Jurgen Klopp should be just doing a little bit more aside from just playing him at left mid where we know it isn't his best position, to try and get Naby Keita more minutes in this Liverpool side. So taking a little look at Leicester then, obviously they haven't been on the best run of form of late. I think, you know what, I'm going to check it now. I'm going to check it now because I'm not 100% sure that Claude Puel is even still their manager, so just bear with me a moment. Yep, Claude Puel is still their manager. I check because obviously, like I said, there's been some weirdly high pressure on him at the moment, and I think what a lot of people were worried about was the fact that they'd sack him before this game and they'd end up getting that new manager bounce that they got, coincidentally, one of the previous times we came back from a warm weather training camp and we played Leicester, and they just got Craig Shakespeare and they played an absolute blinder against us, although to be fair, we were also pretty horrible on that day as well. That was about 2 years ago, back in the 16-17 campaign. But thankfully, I guess, Claude Puel is still their manager because, you know, even if you do think he is a good manager, new manager bounce is always a difficult thing to deal with because the players just give that extra 10% that you don't really want to have to deal with. But like I said, they are on a pretty poor run of form at the moment. You know, the last game they played was their one against Wolves, where they ended up losing 4-3. However, they are also still capable of an upset, as we saw against Man City and Chelsea back in December. Even when they are in the worst form that they've been in for a couple of years now, they're still capable of pulling out those old-fashioned style Leicester performances where they defend deep, they defend well, they throw their bodies on the line, and then when they've got to counter, they make it count and they get the goals that can get them over the line. I think in terms of players that are going to be key for them, obviously Jamie Vardy, always a little bit of a pest against Liverpool. I think he scored more against us than pretty much any other opponent. He's pretty solid in terms of his form up against us, so I think obviously he's going to be a key for them. But I also think James Maddison is going to be so important, because if they want to break us down on the counter-attack, they've got to do it quickly and they've got to do it effectively, because Van Dijk, Dejan Lovren, Alisson will be quick off his line as well. You know, Alexander-Arnold and Andrew Robertson will be able to close in if they need to try and keep the defence tight and stop those counter-attacks. So they're going to need a player like Maddison who can play those really pinpoint passes and play them with the kind of speed that would catch our defence out. So he's definitely going to be the key to Leicester. I think it's really interesting that he was actually left out of that game against Wolves. I do not understand why Claude Puel did that, and I think he'd be absolutely mad to do it in this game because, like I said, if they don't play him, I can't see them actually creating too many opportunities on the counter-attack. Even if Liverpool do play a high line and let them in through the back door a couple of times, he will dictate the pace of their attacking play. I think in terms of how we break them down, I think it's important again to just play fast build-up play and catch out their quite slow and quite disorganised defence. The one thing that really stood out in their game against Wolves was how poor they were at dealing with counter-attacks, especially given that that is Wolves' biggest strength. You know, the amount of times, and part of it was due to the personnel they had in defence. You know, Wes Morgan, Johnny Evans, Harry Maguire, none of them scream pace, although really they should be a bit more organised, and they just weren't in that game, and they got caught out so many times by Wolves. And obviously that's going to be a difficult thing for Liverpool to do because it's at home and we are obviously by far and away the superior team, so I don't expect Leicester to leave anywhere near as much space. But if we do counter quickly, and that's why players like Henderson, Fabinho and Shaqiri are going to be so important in this game, then we still have opportunities to catch them out as well. And also, you know, if it doesn't go well, if we get to the hour mark and we are still, you know, at 0-0 or something like that, I don't think anyone would be that panicked because this Liverpool side has proven that it knows how to get over the line. And obviously we've also got fantastic players to come off the bench who can make the difference there. We could bring on Sturridge, we could bring on Keita. We've got plenty of personnel who we can call upon in a difficult kind of situation, even if it is getting closer and closer to the end of the game and we are in a spot of bother. So yeah, Leicester are still a threat. Like I said, they got those wins against Chelsea, they got that win against Manchester City, so they're always going to be a difficult side to play against. This kind of game is perfectly set up for a Claude Puel masterclass, if you want to even call it that. But what we've got to do is just keep our heads, be careful, always be aware of what Vardy's doing, always be aware of what James Maddison's doing, and hopefully get a nice, comfortable win and the clean sheet as well, and 3 points that will keep us at least 4 points clear at the top of the Premier League table. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. As always, if you did enjoy this video, then hit that like button down there, hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back on Wednesday night outside Anfield after we have hopefully beaten Leicester. Until then, bye for now.